Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Acupuncture Storytime Podcast. I am your host, Daniel Rose, and today is a story of a weird condition that we treated with just acupuncture, no herbal medicine. It's a 15-year-old kid with severe foot, calf, and hip pain that prevents him from walking and running normally for years. This took time to fix. He came in for 106 treatments over 2 years. But in the end, he was fully cured from his condition, which is a condition that without the acupuncture, he would still be suffering from. So, before we get into the story, a quick word. Do you drink tea? Do you want the best quality tea in the world? 30 years ago, you would have to travel the world to find it, but it's 2024 now. Luxury tea is at your fingertips. Tambertea.com, TAEMPERT.com. You can use promo code STORYTIME10 for 10% off your first order. The finest luxury tea is one click away, and I can personally attest the difference between this and anything you get at the store, even nicer stores, is incredible. Tambertea.com. Anyway, so this kid comes into the office in 2020 with a weird history. When he was 1 year old, he had a severe burn from boiling water on his hands. And after that, he's developed unstoppable rages. He was an angry kid. And once he got started on a rage, you could not calm him down. It was not normal. And this continued until he was in 6th grade. And at 6th grade, he said to himself, enough with the anger. I'm done with raging. And after he made that decision, he never got angry again, which is an incredible story for a 6th grader to have that mental fortitude to just turn it off. But afterwards, shortly after, he started complaining of pain shooting down to his feet and his legs when he walks, and it is so severe that he cannot walk long distances or play sports. So his parents take him from specialist to specialist, and nobody can figure it out. And after a couple of years of this, he came into my clinic. That's when people usually come into the acupuncture clinic. They try this doctor, they try that doctor, and then in desperation, they try acupuncture. I would love if people came to me earlier, but this is the usual pattern. Acupuncture is not so, I guess, well known and regarded in the United States at this point, but we'll see what happens with time. So anyway, so I hear this case and this story about this kid. And what I'm immediately drawn to thinking about is not something from traditional Chinese medicine. It's Dr. John Sarno. And if you've never heard of Dr. John Sarno, he's a really interesting character. He was a back surgeon in the 1950s, and he wrote several books because he was concerned that the back surgeries were not really having good effect, or having mixed effect on patients. And he came up with this theory that a lot of back pain is actually caused by repressed emotions. So his theory is that the brain recognizes negative emotions as dangerous, and the subconscious can actually create pains in the body to distract a person from their uncomfortable emotions. And he cured thousands of people based on that method from their chronic pain issues. And with this kid who was who was in 6th grade and just turned off all his anger like that, that's a classic case of suppression of anger, not necessarily working through it. And it was right after that the pain started, so I was a little suspicious of that. The way I got introduced to Dr. Sarno, a patient told me about him, and I decided to read his book, Healing Back Pain, and then I read a second book, I think called The Mind-Body Connection, written by him, and I thought it was compelling. And I had this new patient come in with sciatica, very severe sciatica. It was a woman in her 50s, and she came in walking on a cane and just moaning and groaning that her pain was horrible. And I gave an acupuncture treatment, something very simple, and distal treatment. And she got off the table. She's like, oh my gosh, I have no pain anymore. It's completely gone. No more sciatica. And I was just like, hooray, it's a miracle. And then she calls me 2 days later and she says, it's all back. It's just like it was. And I said, okay, come back in. And I treated her again. And then it went away completely again. And then it came back how it was. And we did this 4 or 5 times. And, well, I wasn't satisfied with that game and cycle. And I was thinking about the Sarno thing. And I thought, why does she have this pain? That's obviously not biomechanical, this issue. This is just the nervous system is making this pain. Maybe this is a Sarno case. So even though I had no training in it, I just, from reading the book, I kind of counseled her, and I explained the concept of that the pain is caused by repressed emotions, and she can overcome it. It's not really biomechanically real, even though it is very real pain. And as she was lying on the table, before I put any needles in, I said, can you just think of what it is that you're really having negative emotions about, the thing that you don't want to avoid, that you don't want to experience? And she started talking about how angry she was at her married daughter for not respecting her. And she got angrier and angrier on the table. And I was watching, just thinking, whoa, this is intense. And she reached this just height of anger, and she started shouting on my table. I was not ready for that or expecting it. I was okay. And after she was done, I just said, okay, stand up. And then she stood up, and there was literally zero pain. She was, oh, I'm all better. And I was just like, okay, don't come for acupuncture anymore. Get this Dr. Sarno book and read it and learn how to cure yourself working through your emotions. After that, I got really into Dr. Sarno for a while. I actually took continuing education courses with this psychologist, Dr. Yosef Nemirov was his name. He is in Israel, and he's a brilliant psychologist. I learned a tremendous amount from him. I kind of opened almost a second branch of the practice, doing psychosomatic emotional therapy, helping people get in touch with their repressed emotions and work through them. I helped a lot of people with that, but I got really burnt out after a year of it, and I stopped. But it's something that I've always taken with me, and is very compelling to me. So where were we? We're talking about this 15-year-old with the pain. So I explained that to the kid and his parents. I said, I think that would help. And they said, well, he already has a psychologist, so you have to run everything by him, because he's very close with the psychologist. So I called the psychologist, and he says, this kid had such intense anger. I don't want him to revisit it or to feel it or experience it in any way. We're not touching it. I don't want you touching his mind. Don't do it. And I said, okay. So I called the family back. I said, we could try acupuncture. And they said, nope, he's afraid of the needles. He says no needles, so we're not going to do it. So I thought, all right, well, that's case closed. But 1 year later, when he moved from 9th grade to 10th grade, they called back, and they said he's ready to try the needles because nothing else is working, and he's willing to give it a shot. So we started trying, and after a couple visits, he started noticing he was feeling a little bit better. And after each visit, he would get off the table and say, wow, I feel a little bit less pain. And he came back every week for the next 2 years, 106 treatments, 30 minutes of acupuncture once a week, and eventually the pain was just gone. So that was, it took time, but that was an incredible success for a very severe condition. So how do we do it? What's the nuts and bolts of this treatment? And this section here is for the practitioners listening. It'll get a little technical. So if you're not a practitioner, listen in if you dare. First of all, the diagnosis. His leg pain had a burning and sharp sensation to it. So I'm thinking there kind of heat and blood stagnation. His tongue was reddish with red prickles, which again says heat. And he had that history of the suppressed rage, which suggests to me liver qi stagnation causing internal heat, and then both the liver qi stagnation and the internal heat leading to blood stagnation. So with this, the first channel I picked was the kidney channel, which may seem non-intuitive. 3 reasons why. Number 1, the kidney is a water channel, and water puts out fire. And his legs are on fire with a burning sensation. And so this idea that if you strengthen the water, then could stop that burning. Number 2, the kidney is water, which in the 5-element cycle nourishes wood. And he has this liver qi stagnation where the wood just kind of snaps and breaks. And water makes the wood bend, not break. So whenever I treat liver qi stagnation now, I always add a kidney point, usually kidney 7. And I find that gets better results than just treating the liver alone. Number 3, anyone who has chronic emotional distress or chronic physical ailments like this pain, it's going to drain kidney qi, so you're going to need to boost that anyway. So kidney points I use in this were generally kidney 7, kidney 9, kidney 15, kidney 27. That's a combination. I believe it comes from Kiko Matsumoto Japanese-style acupuncture, and it's really effective. The trick with it is what you do is palpate the psoas right on the inside of the hip bone, and you find which side is more tender and sensitive. And the one that's more tender and sensitive, you use kidney 9 on that channel. The opposite side, you'd use kidney 7, and then do kidney 15 and kidney 27. You repalpate, and a lot of times after that, the hips, the psoas doesn't feel so painful anymore. And it's a great way to nourish kidney and show patients immediately on the table that, whoa, something's happening. My body feels better within seconds of treatment. If it doesn't work, then a lot of times what I'll do is just do a tonifying technique. I'll just do kind of tonifying, lifting and thrusting 9 times on each point from the bottom to the top, and then recheck, and that gets better. The second channel that I worked with is liver and gallbladder channel because of that history of the liver qi stagnation. So sometimes I used gallbladder 31 and then Tutsan above and below. Sometimes I used the Minghuang points from the Master Deng Acupuncture, which is analogous to gallbladder 31, just on the liver channel, and Tutsan above and below. And I use those to move liver, gallbladder qi. Sometimes, if I felt like he needed, I threw in a heart 7 or heart 9. And then also, sometimes I switched and I did kind of an earth metal treatment: stomach 36, spleen 6, LI 11, LI 4, lung 7. And sometimes I'd flip them over. I'd do acupuncture on UE points on the calves, or doing a little twin on, just rubbing out the calves and the feet. Maybe for a quarter of the treatments, I would do something like that. And, there's plenty, 106 treatments. There's plenty of other stuff I did. There's a lot to play around with. But that was the core of what I did with him. And so we just had slow, steady improvement for 2 years until one day it's just no more leg pain. No more foot pain, no more hip pain, no more back pain, which also was an issue at one point. And he went to summer camp and started playing sports again, and just walking around like a normal person. So this is an incredible case of acupuncture curing a condition that baffled multiple orthopedists, chiropractors, and other healthcare workers. It took time, but it worked, and now he's off to college studying engineering with a healthy body. And I'd also like to think that in acupuncture, when we're working on all these organ systems, we're working on patterns that are greater than just the particular pain and symptoms. So I'd like to think that for him, we actually really helped his mental health as well, and emotional health. And we also prevented greater diseases that could have come in the future if some of these issues were left untreated. So that's the kind of case that makes me really happy and feel privileged and grateful to be in this profession, that I could do this and change the entire trajectory of a child's life. And he was a really cool kid. I really liked him. So that's the story. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time on the Acupuncture Storytime podcast.